When reviewing the scenarios, it became very clear to me which one I needed to focus on. That scenario would be when a student repeatedly forgets homework and then starts to become disengaged. I've dealt with that before in the classroom. I have a specific scenario that really taught me a lot, about that situation and how some things can be more advanced than they actually appear to you. If you take that punitive approach, you'd probably start out by, going to the student and saying, hey, you need to turn this in ASAP. And when they don't after a few times, you're probably going to start, plugging in zeros. You may even have some type of policy that they have to go, talk to the administrator, potentially get some type of punishment like detention or something like that. And, you know, there are rules. There's great to have procedures, of course, like we've talked about before. But, sometimes there's some bigger issues going on. And one of those that I've faced before is, we had a couple of assignments that kids had to do online at home. And I assigned it, and I had a certain student of mine a couple years ago who, never did it at home. And so after about 2 times of him not doing it, I'd plugged in zeros, and I finally went to him. I'm like, hey, man, why are you not turning in these assignments? And that's when he told me, Coach, I don't have any Wi-Fi at home, so I can't do it at home. I can do it, at school, but by the time we're back here, you normally have it closed. And so it really was an eye-opening experience for me because I'd been handling it with that punitive approach. Hey, you don't do this, you're going to get that zero. And I really didn't understand that full picture of what I needed to do. I thought, man, I need to escalate this to another level. I need to take this to, maybe to an admin, or maybe to, I need to ask some senior teachers how to handle this because this kid will not do his work. But really, it was me and my approach not allowing him to do it because I didn't understand. I didn't take time to, build that family, build that trust that kid needed to come to me and say, hey, Coach, I don't have the capability to do this at home. Is there any way I could, start doing this at school? And I hadn't built that family atmosphere just yet with him. I hadn't built that trust. And so, that really opened my eyes to start, even before I knew about the whole restorative practices, it really opened my eyes to start using that in my own classroom, and aligning my own teaching style with that. A restorative approach to a situation where a student, doesn't do their homework would be, like a one-on-one conference. Hey, what's going on? Talk to me. And like I said, I had to learn that, to go to that student and say, you obviously, you're not getting your work done. Is there something I can do better to help you? Is there something that's going on outside of these 4 walls that we need to talk about? And maybe not even with me, but with an administrator, maybe with a counselor, something that we can help get resolved, right? In order so that you can do your work. Do I need to even email you? That's another example of something that you could use for restorative practices. Do I need to email you every time we have homework? And maybe, we can always schedule emails. Can I schedule you an email to kind of just remind you, hey, you've got this assignment due tonight, or you've got this assignment due today, or tomorrow. That's always an example you could use to kind of, again, build that trust, build that relationship, to take it away from, hey, if you don't do this, it's a zero, to, hey, listen, I'm here to help you. I'm here to further you along. And I want you to understand, that whatever I need to do to help, I'm here for it. And I think that goes a long way with the students. If you can find that root cause of what's deterring them from doing their homework, I think you're going to get a lot further than if you just, automatically start plugging in zeros without understanding what's the shift in the student. Because most students are not just going to be doing their work and then stop one day. There's some other instance or something other driving force that's keeping them from doing their work, or keeping them from being engaged. And I think if you build that trust and you problem solve with that student to find that avenue of what's deterring them, you're going to get a lot better results than if you just push for zeros and trouble. And that's a very hard line to walk. I mean, we know that restorative practices, they take time. That's the biggest thing about those, is they're going to take time to build. They take consistency. You can't be, punitive one day and restorative the next. You've got to take that in the classroom every single day and kind of set that standard to build the relationship with the students. That's what you want. You want them to trust you. You want them to say, hey, this classroom is a family. And, if you're not willing to put in the time, it's never going to work. I think a lot of times older teachers struggle with this because they've been in that punitive mindset of, hey, X, Y, and Z. It's black and white. And I think a lot of times with kids nowadays, it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area with how to resolve certain issues. And these kids nowadays, they really need an avenue to talk, to kind of be understood. That's really what students want. They want to be understood. And once they feel understood, they feel heard. I think a lot of times, like we've talked about, that trust is there for them to come to you and express, issues that are going on, or express why they're not getting certain work done. Now, when it comes to introducing, restorative practices in a classroom that's been very punitive for a long time, I think, you kind of have to kind of pair up with a teacher that's very good at those restorative practices. You need to pair two teachers, a punitive teacher and a restorative teacher, and kind of let them kind of bounce ideas off each other. The teacher that uses punitive practices might, throw an idea out there, and the restorative teacher might be able to kind of deter them, or kind of sway them, or kind of change their mindset on how to handle that situation. You could also have different, collaborative meetings with whole groups and kind of play some role-playing scenarios of how to handle certain situations. Now, you're never going to get cookie cutter, but you can have an idea with these role-playing scenarios that can help teachers, kind of have an avenue to how to solve these issues and problem solve without blowing up, or without, just, hey, it's reward or it's, trouble. And so I think if we can help them see the different avenues that they can use, a different way that they can handle things, and the why behind it, I think that's one of the biggest parts of it. If they can understand the why behind restorative practices and how it better helps students, I think, anytime you can present teachers with data to back up why something works over another way, I think that's another way that you can help bring classrooms that have been punitive into those restorative avenues.